What's up, baseball world? Welcome along to another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay. It has been a while since we have talked. Things have gone a little bit crazy here in the UK. Things have gone a little bit crazy in Toronto, and it's good to say that they're in Toronto. That's how long it's been since we've recorded. I am joined as ever by Rob from Blue Jay Centre and free agent Sheldon. Boys, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Our last homestand was something out of a fairy tale, man. It was just having boys back in town, and not only that, but playing the level that they're playing, 9-2, right back in the thick of things. It's going to get really interesting here in the next 6 to 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think the last few months, it's going to be kind of fun. I mean, the Jose Barris trade, like Rob was saying it all along, Jose Barris. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't see Minnesota trading for him. And then all of a sudden they just traded him.
It's Barrios.
Whatever. To get Barrios. What is it?
Barrios.
Yeah, so you've got burritos and Max Shawarma. That's the names just food.
Barrios.
Pitching food.
He looked good. He looks really good. Now they got 6 starters they can roll out. Now, I don't know if they're going to go with the 6-man starting staff, but they got 6 starters now.
Let's start there. I think that's the best place to start, because obviously we've got no pitching, we've got no starters, we don't know who's doing what, and like at the moment it's like our ace is our worst pitcher, and that's no disrespect to Ryu, because he has been good for the majority of this season, but they've been amazing. Like our starting 6, so to speak, as it is now, with the addition of Jose, we'll call him
Jose,
just so we can't get his name wrong. But like with the addition of him, like we've had 6 good starters now. I think the jury's still out on Matz, and I think the jury's still out on Stripling to a certain extent. But they've been good and they've been solid. And then when you throw in Ray has been stellar, Manoah has been stellar, Ryu, he's kind of pitched one bad, one good, one bad, so he's kind of a little bit there. And then who have I missed out?
Barrios.
Yeah. And of course he's come in, he's had 2 starts, and they were both outstanding, really.
Yeah.
So I think that we don't need to ask any questions in regards to the opening rotation anymore. The only question would be is, do we try and keep hold of Ray for next year? And do we go down to a 5-man rotation? There was a question asked on Blue Jay Centre the other day. Who do you cut? Do you cut Matz? Do you cut Stripling? And my line of thinking at the moment is why not stick with the 6-man? Like, seriously, why not? If it's not broke, don't fix it. Let's roll with it until it starts to go wrong. Then maybe make a decision, rather than just trying to change it for the sake of changing it because everyone goes with a 5-man rotation. Why can't we go with a 6?
So first of all, let me just start by saying, isn't it incredible how at the start of the year we were all terrified of this rotation? It was Ryu, and it was a bunch of guys who you might not know where you're going to get out of. Robbie Ray, we were hoping and praying that he would just be somewhat decent. He turned out to be one of the best pitchers in the entire league this season. Outstanding. Alek Manoah, probably a guy who we didn't think was going to contribute much, if anything.
You didn't think. I had him down.
Okay.
I was singing his praises before he even got called up.
Well, maybe that's just me, but I just thought 35 innings in the minor leagues, to go from that to being a legitimate top-of-the-line starter was too big of a jump, but he's proved me wrong, obviously. And I've always been a Manoah fan, especially when they drafted him. I just thought that maybe the ascension was a little too soon, but certainly not appearing to be that the case at all. He looks very ready to handle being a starting pitcher in a pennant race right now.
Let me just interrupt you quickly. Not only his performance, I think the fact that he's such a big character in the whole team as well. I think it's helped some of the others. Like he's really kind of joined in. Bearing in mind he's a kid.
Exactly.
He's a kid with no real experience, and he's come in there. And the character for me is huge with Manoah. Massive.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the stuff and he's got the guts to be a big league starter right away. He's proven that right off the bat. So obviously him, Hyunjin Ryu, he's like kind of been downgraded to the fourth starter. I feel even weird saying downgraded because he hasn't even pitched bad. It's not even on his own omission. It's just that everyone else has pitched so well where as of right now on the depth chart, he's probably your fourth guy, which, you know, to have a former, you know, Cy Young finalist less than a calendar year ago be your fourth starter, you could definitely do a lot worse than that. So absolutely, this rotation right now, I think it's without question the best in the division. And I mean, I guess you could say the White Sox, maybe, you know, if Verlander gets back, the Astros are up there, but they're looking like they can go punch to punch with any rotation in the AL East right now, or pardon me, the AL in general right now.
No, I totally agree with that. I think the starting staff got the upgrades it needed. They started to develop. I think Strickland found himself once he did his reworking of the mechanics. Steven Matz started well, and now he's kind of sputtering a bit, but you know, that's to be expected.
He keeps us in games though, doesn't he, Mats? Like it's not like he's totally getting real blown out, and he keeps.
He's not getting blown out by any stretch of imagination. The fun question will be if this team does make the playoffs, and I can't see them not making it. They're going to catch Boston. They could conceivably catch Tampa. I think even the Yankees can catch Boston. I think there's going to be 3 teams coming out of the East. That's my speculation. Who do you go with in the playoffs? I mean, it's going to be Ray for sure, Manoa for sure, and then after that, Barros or Jose, and then because I'm going to mess up his name constantly. I'm honestly going to mess up his name, and I shouldn't. And Ryu, that's probably the 4 you're going to go with Strickland and Matz in the bullpen, which is not a bad idea. And then I think the only question they got is you only have 2 minor questions would be catching in at third, but I think Espinal is going to run with it. I think Espinal has proven that he could be.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? That's the biggest question, isn't it?
I think I would just run with Espinal. He's proven that he can. His defense is really, really off the charts at third, man. Like
you're talking playoffs, as in getting past the wild card game, though, right? Because
I'm including everything, wild card and everything else. I think the Jays will. Tampa's going to have to fall back eventually. They can't keep up at this pace, and there's not a knock against the Tampa Rays or the organization or players, but they've been really playing above and beyond. So the Jays could conceivably get the AL East crown. So the wild card wouldn't enter the equation. If it does, who do you start in the wild card? Probably Robbie Ray.
I've got a take on that. Like the kid putting his hand up in school. I've got a take on that. So if we were to stick with this 6-man rotation, now, I'm not saying that we're not going to, and I'm not saying that we will, because with Charlie, you never really know what's up, right? But let's just say that we were to stick with a 6-man rotation. We could actually be in a position where we could have 2 of our starters able to start that wild card game if possible. Like someone could come in 2-3 innings, another one could come 2-3 days. If we had the 6-man rotation, because they would have at least had 4 days rest.
It's conceivable.
But Jay, like going back, I know that you asked about the 6-man rotation. That we didn't really quite give you an answer on that. I don't necessarily agree. I don't think that they should go through a 6-man rotation. Honestly, I agree that Matz and Stripling have been good, but have they been good that you would want them to go over a guy like Barrios?
No, but hang on. But hear me out. Right, apart from Barrios, apart from him, everybody else has been pitching in that rotation or in that setup, because we had Kay was the 6th man, wasn't he? He was the one coming in and filling it out. Everyone else is used to it apart from Barrios. He's the only one that hasn't pitched in the 6-man rotation. So all I'm saying is are we getting the best out of our pitchers because of the 6-man rotation? Therefore, you don't mess around with it. That's all I'm saying.
I think stuff-wise, it's probably sharper, but also they could be maybe over-rested if there's a possibility, because some of these guys are actually conditioned to go 4 and 5 start like every 4th or 5th day. But now I know it's helping Ryu, even though to show up in the last start, but it's something that he kind of gravitates towards from time to time, like getting that extra day off. And I think to a lesser extent, it does help Alek Manoah in terms of his pitch count innings. Yeah, his pitch count innings. So I I could see Rob's point that, hey, man, you don't really need to go with the 6-man because Stripling and Max have not been as good as the other 4. But in terms of the longevity of it, if Charlie says, I'm going to stay with the 6-man rotation to the end of the season or until he feels he needs to make a change, I can't. This is one of the few times where I won't disagree with Charlie on it. But if he turns around and says, I'm going with a 4-man pitching staff right away, I'll be like, what?
Because
that might be overkill.
If either Mats or Stripling, and by the way, I think it will be Stripling only because he's the one with the experience coming out of the pen. If he does go in there, he automatically becomes the long man.
Mm-hmm.
How many innings does he pitch with the pitchers pitching like they are at the moment, though? Like,
why can't you have him piggyback why can't you have him piggyback Mats? Mats goes 5, he goes 4. You save your bullpen.
Yeah, no, I guess like that's the ideal scenario. But
yeah,
I think that's where it goes, though, isn't it? From there, because the starting rotation, whether it be a 4-man fight, obviously we don't want to see it go down to a 4-man rotation, and that's not going to happen.
It'll happen in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, definitely in the playoffs. But with it being a 5-man, possibly 6 going through to now, leads me to the bullpen. The bullpen kind of speaks for itself now in regards to the crucial innings when we're winning 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think we kind of know roughly who's there or thereabouts. If Stripling is added to there, there's also talk about obviously Nate Pearson coming in at some point. Does it seem a little bit unbalanced? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't. What I'm trying to say is that the bullpen as it is when we're winning is okay, but what about these games where we like the guy that came in on Sunday, Sneed, however you want to pronounce it.
They how we're picturing everybody's names now.
the guy looks like a giant, right? Like, he came in. He's not part of the rotation though, right? He did well, and he did what was asked of him. Who goes into that bullpen to make us feel confident? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that we still don't really have full confidence in the bullpen.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this bullpen is still very much a question. I think that this whole weekend it's we're coming home. The Jays are playing well. 9-2 rotation's great. And then that Cleveland game, they were up 8-0 late in the game, and it's the bullpen still sucks. And that's just kind of wow. I look back and I say this is a pretty legitimate weakness on this team. As great as I think this team is, I do feel like the bullpen maybe not making the necessary additions at the deadline might come back to hurt them. I do feel as though Brad Hand and Joaquin Story, the 2 guys he did pick up, were substantial upgrades over the guys they were throwing out back in May or June, where it seemed like anyone but Romano.
We saw him pitch 1 inning.
Yeah,
1 inning.
Exactly.
And he looked really good as well, right? And then it goes down the next day.
Exactly. Yeah. Two guys who have had a lot of experience being very good late inning relievers, but at this stage, probably fair to say in the twilight of their respective careers, not necessarily expecting them to be the guys that they once were, not all that long ago. And even the guys who we do have right now who have pitched well for us, the Adam Simbers, the Trevor Richards, I still feel as though despite how good Simbers pitched, the lack of ability to miss bats is concerning. And we saw that on the Saturday game, the Red Sox game that they lost, where the extra innings rule comes in effect with the guy on second and nobody out. In that situation, you need swing and miss because that runner, he's going to move up on contact, and you don't need to score a runner from second with a hit if you can just move the runner over. That's exactly what they did. That's why they ended up losing that game. So him being a late inning guy still concerns me, despite as good as he's been. And yeah, when you look at all the other guys, they're pretty thin. It's Richards, Romano, Adam Simber, and then Meza, who had been good, and then he gets hurt as well. So I do feel that comparing this bullpen to all the other bullpens, the teams that were contending, we're definitely lacking in that category, no doubt. And that's, to me, that's a concerning aspect.
And that could hurt us because what Charlie has shown is that he's not really willing to put people in 2 games on a trot.
Not that he's not willing, but it's clear that Romano, he's just not as sharp. You know, the numbers are there. They tell us that when he pitches back-to-back days, which hasn't been all that often, the stuff isn't quite the same. You know, the numbers aren't as good, although I'm going to ignore those a little bit because it is a small sample, but just the overall bite on his fastball, it's not quite the same. Not the 101 that we saw the other day
Sunday,
where no one can hit that. Yeah, so I feel like there is legitimacy to that, unfortunately, that Romano, as you know, right now he's this team's closer in the stretch run, but it doesn't appear as though he's a guy who you can necessarily count on to go multiple days, 3 out of 4 games, and get saves for you time after time, like we saw, you know, Roberto Osuna or even more recently Ken Giles get for this.
But
team.
we have to. But we have to, because one of the things that's going to come up as we're talking is the lack of ability to manufacture runs when they're needed. Like, it's all well and good we can go out and smash 9 runs in 1 inning. Like, that's great, yeah. And it's all well and good if we can go out and win 13-1 or whatever the scores are that we've done with these big numbers is fine. But when it really mattered, like the game that we ended up losing, okay, we won the first one with a walk-off home run. We didn't manufacture any runs. And they were 2 very, very tight games, pitched very, very well. But we struggle in this extra innings business. And the wild card game, for example, could come down to something like that. Or the stretch of games in the last week where we have to win. And it got like, let's just say it's 1-1 or 2-2, and it goes to extra innings. We don't seem to be able to get that man across the line.
I think that's why that's the difference. That's the difference between Tampa and everybody else. They don't. If you take a look at the numbers, they're probably not the greatest. But when it comes to actually manufacturing a run when they need to, they can do it. And that's probably the big difference between Tampa and everyone else. And they're, you know, how they manipulate their bullpen when they need to. Espinal plays small ball. You can use him to do some small stuff, you know, bunting and stuff like that. Bo's not going to bunt. You're going to get him to swing. Vladdy's not going to bunt. He's going to swing. Marcus, same thing. I mean, you got a team full of guys who can swing. So they're going to go with their strengths. I don't think we'll ever see Teoscar drop a bunt. Not that he can't do it. He probably has done it. He's got enough speed to actually beat out a but I think Kevin Biggio, Santiago Espinal are probably 2 of the guys that you can probably trust to put a bunt down if need be to manufacture a run, to move a runner over. But I don't blame Charlie. Let the guy swing. It's, you know, if you could swing yourself into something, you know, there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to swing yourself out of something. So it's one of those things where, like, you know, it's how the team's built. They're built to thump, and you know, that's what they do. They do it really well. I think what 3rd or 2nd in overall runs scored, I think, or something like that. So they crank out runs. Now, granted, some of those runs are in bulks, like 13-1 and, you know, 9-2, and then you have a score of 3-0. But at the end of the day, they score runs. So how they do it, yeah, it's going to catch. I think it's going to catch up to them a little bit in the playoffs or those close games where they need to manufacture a run. But you know, if they're all, you know, George Springer is doing what George Springer does, and Vladdy gets out of the number 2 hole, that's a story for another day. They're going to be fine.
Yeah, okay. Like you said there, like talking Vladdy, like we're always singing his praises, and you can't not sing his praises this year. Notice 2 things. Obviously, one, the 2 hole. I think everyone would prefer to see him hit 3. And then if he hits like he is at the moment at number 3, it could just be that he's a little bit burnt out now already. Still a kid, remember. Hasn't played a whole full 162 games in 1 season anyway. So the fact that he's flagging a little bit doesn't surprise me. But it was interesting to see that Boston intentionally walked him over the weekend. Now, I've got a feeling, because of how potent our lineup is, we're going to start to see that a lot over the next few weeks. I've got a feeling that his numbers are going to get affected. Obviously, not his on base because a walk's a walk, right? But I think that his hitting numbers are going to seriously get affected over the next, especially if we're playing contending teams. So if we're playing the likes of Boston, the Angels probably don't think they're out of it just yet. They're not massively far behind us in the wild card race. And then obviously we've got series against the Yankees coming up, and Seattle. Obviously, Seattle's going to be a huge series for us because they're in it. I think Vladdy will end up getting walked. I don't know how many times, but I think it's something we're going to see now. Only because if you've got to face Springer, who's absolutely on fire at the moment, and it's good to see that he's not a dud. It's nice that we're actually getting to see the guy that we spent all that money on. But he's on fire. Marcus hasn't really dropped. He's still on pace to have an amazing year. Bo is Bo. You know what you get with Bo. And then obviously Vladdy, but Teoscar's still on fire as well. He's still hitting well. And even though people have been slagging Lourdes off, I think that Gurriel's come round a bit, and I think he's been much better at the plate. Let's not talk fielding, because I think fielding overall, we kind of suck. Even George Springer in centre field hasn't looked great at times. All right, he had his magnificent catch, but there's been some plays that I've looked at and thought, what's he doing, man? He's been drinking before he's gone out to play. So that's my take on that.
When we mentioned that Santiago Espinal is probably the best defender, that's not taking anything away from him, but it kind of tells you that maybe defensively the team is not as sharp as they should be, and we've seen it throughout the season. I would say
that Vladdy is our best defender at the moment. I'm gonna be honest, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. Really.
I would put Espinal just above him. That's not taking anything away from Vladdy. I think what he's done at first base, his conversion from third to first, and how he started at first to where he is now, is unbelievably his ability to play first is it's top notch. I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years we start mentioning Gold Glove with him.
I was about to say, imagine this year he ends up with a Gold Glove at first base and has nothing else to show for it.
Right,
no batting title, nothing. Yeah.
You know what? That would remind me of. This is before Rob's time. So this was like Doug Gilmour when he had that massive season for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and all he got was the defensive player of the year, or the defensive player, defensive forward, or something like that. And I'm looking at it going,
I saw Jay's eye roll when he started talking about hockey.
Yeah, that's okay. And I was I was pretty young at the time, and I'm like, really, man, this guy should have been the MVP. But you know what? Nothing surprises me. If he wins a Gold Glove and doesn't even get a Silver Slugger, I would not be surprised with how the voters vote. But him and Espinal have been probably the best defenders, and we've seen Teoscar. Teoscar hasn't been bad this year. He's been a lot better than what he was years prior. Lourdes and left. I'm not sure how he got nominated for the Gold Glove last year, because some of those plays he did last year was kind of.
He's having so much fun, though, right? I reckon that he's having so much fun. Sometimes he just gets caught up in it, and he's like, "Crap, the ball's coming."
Yeah.
But he makes up for it with his arm, right?
Well, his arm is a bazooka, man. His arm is pretty epic. You can't question that. Randall, Randall hasn't been bad defensively, in center and in right. So he's been
who?
Randall Grichuk.
Oh, I forgot.
We totally forgot about him. He stopped hitting, and everybody else forgot about him. That's kind of sad. Bo's still learning short. Marcus has been very, very good at second. So
solid.
Yeah. So they've got some parts there that can play. It's just how does this team react, in the playoffs or in a wild card game or late in the season defensively? That would be
So Sheldon, you were going off and on about everyone on the field, and it took you to the last guy to mention the real best defender on this team.
Oh, what he's going to say? I thought you were going to say Danny Jansen.
No, I wouldn't go that far. Marcus Simeon's been their best defender, man, this year.
It's
not even close. It's not even close.
Consistency, right?
Yeah, he's been
Right,
consistent. He's been consistently good. He's been really consistent. He's been consistently good. But he priced himself out of Toronto, so I don't want to talk about him anymore.
Has he really said anything yet? I haven't been reading or seeing anything.
I think he's going to San Francisco in the offseason. I think he's going back home. That's my feeling.
I would be shocked if he's a Blue Jay come next year. Unfortunately, I just feel like with the way he's playing, it seems almost unfeasible that the Blue Jays will be able to give him a contract that he wants, especially when you think of this offseason. Obviously, the work stoppage might play a role into it, but with the Blue Jays having to lock up so many guys and also have dished out a couple big contracts, it's going to be tough. Especially they want to keep Robbie Ray around as well. I think it's a lock that one of them's gone for sure.
If you have to choose one of them, who do you choose? I know that I choose Ray.
Yeah,
I think I'm choosing Simeon, man. I think like to have an everyday player playing at the level that he's in. He's a 5-win player already, and it's like middle of August. He's been incredible for this team. I would take him right now over Robbie Ray. And another reason too that might play a role is that Marcus Semien, since the start of 2019, has legitimately been one of the best players in baseball, with the exception of that first month of the COVID year. Mm-hmm. So we take away that month, and he's legitimately been. Look at all the WAR leaders, the best hitters in baseball, like just the overall production. He's up there for sure. And the fact that they were able to snatch him on a 1-year deal, well, it's definitely the best move of the offseason that any team has made. There's no doubt about that.
It's not, because obviously if they had signed him up for a 2 or 3 or 4 year deal, that would have been the best deal of this offseason.
No, I think he wanted that pillow contract. I think he just wanted the 1-year deal to see what he could do and see what he can.
He's just tripled his value, hasn't he? Basically.
Oh, pretty much. Yeah. Like I said, I think San Francisco. I think the Brandon Crawford era is coming to an end, and that's nothing against him. But if you can, or they might be able to keep Crawford and sign Simeon and have Simeon play second base for them, shortstop.
Yeah. I had a take that kind of got lost because we kept like talking about. Well, we got into the Simeon conversation, but you guys were mentioning how this lineup, it's got like a ton of hitters, and they still have trouble manufacturing runs. I do feel like the right-handed heaviness kind of plays into role into that. I feel like which is why I really wanted the Jays to get that Joey Gallo deal done. I know that obviously you were already dishing out a ton of your prospect capital, which we haven't talked about yet. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, for Barrios.
We will.
We will. I'm sure we will. But Joey Gallo would have been the perfect addition for this team. You don't have any legitimate left-handed hitters. Kevin Biggio is not even an everyday player on this team, and he's probably the best guy that you have available right now, which is not all that promising.
Well, I don't know. I think Corey Dickerson's done okay. Bearing in mind, he's coming off an injury that's been like. If we had to give Springer a couple of weeks, I don't see why we don't give the same to Corey and see how he does. Like in small parts, he's been okay. I think he's done well defensively. Yes. He's probably an upgrade in left field. And he's a left-handed bat with some power.
He is, but at the same time, he's not Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo's been outstanding this season for Texas, now in New York. So I think had they found the way, I know I'm not blaming them. They got the move that he needed. They got Barrios done. That's fine.
And that's why we didn't get him, right? That's why we didn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. But I think Joey Gallo in this lineup, it would have been easily the best lineup in baseball. I mean, I can't see any other counter to that. You have one of the best left-handed power hitters in the game, separating all these tough right-handed hitters. It would have been a nightmare to pitch to. And late in games, when we see these hard-throwing righties come in and just find a way to shut the Jays hitters down, right-hand heavy lineup, having a big hitting lefty in there who can get on base and hit a ton of home runs, that would have made a difference in the world, in my opinion.
And that's why the Yankees got him and Anthony Rizzo specifically to go against. Don't shake your head. You know I'm right. That's specifically
I said those two moves are why the Yankees are a lot more scarier. I was not scared of the Yankees prior to the deadline, but now with those two guys, I think that they're legit.
They're matching us as well. Like every time we win, they're winning. Every time we lose, they may lose as well. And
have you seen their disabled list? It's almost like an all-star team of disabled people.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So wait till those guys come back. or COVID, the COVID list that they're on. I mean, some of those guys are coming back. Cole's coming back.
Sheldon, you're not allowed to call them disabled anymore. Yeah.
Oh, injured.
Let's hope they start catching L's instead of COVID.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Yankees, like I said, I think the Jays are going to catch the Red Sox. They could conceivably catch the Rays. The Yankees will catch the Red Sox. I'm saying that right now.
I'm starting to think the Red Sox are the fourth best team in this division right now.
Yeah.
Roster wise.
Look, let's look at it this way. Yeah, we played 2 series very, very close against them. The first one was split 2-2, which again, there was a game in there we probably should have won and we lost.
Against Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously, and then we've just beat them 3-1, and that should have been a sweep, right? Let's face it. If we do what we do in that game that we lost, we sweep the series. I think that we are miles better than the Red Sox. And now with our pitching rotation, maybe, just maybe, they've got 1 or 2 hands in the bullpen that are a bit more reliable than our guys. Apart from that, player for player, I choose every single one of our players. Maybe third place. Maybe third place.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I said all year long, I don't think this is a very good Red Sox team. I think that they've obviously significantly exceeded anyone's expectations. I think, no disrespect to them, they definitely have a lot of good bats. JD Martinez is a freak. Rafael Devers looks like he might be the best third baseman in this division for, the next 10 years. Xander Bogaerts playing like an MVP candidate. They do have some fire guys at the bottom of that bullpen. They're definitely a good team, but I definitely don't think that they're as good as their record shows up until this point. And the fact that they've kind of come back down to earth a little bit here as of late is probably, a long time coming that this team was going to regress at some point. And by the way, I want to mention 10 games. The Blue Jays have lost 10 games this season to the Rays and Red Sox, in which the game they were leading or tied after 7 innings, which is insane to me. That's the division right there. Yeah. That right there is the division difference.
I can't remember what I was going to say now.
I just
Sheldon,
shook you with my stat.
Yeah, you just hit me with your 10, and now I don't know who am I. What's my name? Sheldon, take it, but we have to.
No, I think that shows the weakness of the bullpen, that they couldn't hold those games. Even if they had won 5 of them, we could be talking about a team that's probably close to first base or first place and in first place. So
I remembered what it was. Hang on, I remember what it was. And because what you said, it is now the fact with the scheduling so easy friendly towards teams like Boston at the beginning of the season, where they were constantly playing Baltimore and all these other teams that gave them a chance to go ahead. Now that it's evened itself out and they've played us, and let's face it, we've played all right against them. All right. They ended up winning the series, like the overall series against us. But let's face it, we played a lot of them games early on as well. So if we are playing them now till the end of the season, I reckon we would smash them.
Yeah, I agree. I mentioned this point on this podcast, so I'm not mistaken. If you guys remember that, I felt like a top-heavy schedule would favor the Blue Jays at the start of the season, because you had a chance to, at the start of the year, these good teams, you had a chance to get some wins against them before they got going. You look at the Braves, the team that the Blue Jays saw in April, that Braves team, way different than the team we're seeing right now. This team's starting to win a few more games. They're definitely looking a lot more legit than when we saw them. And then you have teams like the Orioles, the Twins, the
Royals.
Royals, the Tigers. Yeah, at the beginning of the year, there were teams that weren't playing all that poorly, but later on in the year, they get exposed for being the frauds that everyone thought they were over a long sample size. And now we face
I think the last 70-something games, the Tigers do have a winning record. So whatever they're doing in Detroit, and it's probably beating up the Royals and teams that are not that good, but the Tigers playing reasonably well.
Kind of legit at the moment, yeah. Like I saw that. I was
and I think it's a little bit of Akil Baddoo doing his thing. I mean, and he's just been an igniter for that team. So props to Detroit.
Well, okay, fine. So maybe they're not the 120 loss team that we saw the last 2 years, but they're not a good team. They're not making the playoffs.
No, they're not making the playoffs, but they can cause some problems.
Sure. But Minnesota too. Like, imagine playing them early on in the year when they had Barrios and all of these guys that they traded. Now all of a sudden we're going to face them basically a rundown rendition of this team who's walking towards the funeral march of their season with no playoff expectations. So I definitely think that at the start of the year, I said that the Jays having a softer end of the schedule would benefit them, and let's see if they take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's basically it. They have to take advantage of it. I mean, if they decide to play 50-50 ball against the Royals and all these other, struggling teams, they're in trouble. They got to literally beat them up real good.
Okay, so before we go any further, I wanted to talk a couple of things. It's like we like to keep it lighthearted, and we don't just talk about baseball, but we talk about the baseball Blue Jays family that's out there. So, Blue Jay Center. Obviously, Sheldon's been missing in action for a little while. He's got commitments and stuff, haven't we all? It's all gone like a little bit crazy. But you've got two. I think it's two new guys on Blue Jay Center at the moment. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, that's correct. Tyler and Mark.
Okay, so out of Tyler and Mark, who do you think's made the biggest impression so far?
You're really going there, man.
I am really going
there. So actually, I've never been on with Mark yet. We still have not been on a show together. I was once with Tyler on his first game, so it's a little unfair. I haven't really been there to judge them accordingly, being there with them. But I think they both stepped in and done a great job.
Well, I think
the political answer is all you're going to get, buddy.
I think they're okay. They're no Sheldon. But they're obviously finding their feet and they need to get in there. So the biggest question is why wasn't I asked to do it instead of these two? Like, seriously, come on, man. Like, it's
because you're sleeping by the time we were on the show.
No, I'm joking, man. I'm joking. Like,
Jay, we put the ad out for everyone. You could have just as evenly as them. Just
I didn't see. I didn't even know. I just was watching.
Oh,
and then
that was back in January.
This new guy comes on, and I'm like, who the hell's this dude? But fair play to them. I haven't yet turned off while they're talking, so they must be doing something right. So obviously you lot have obviously been switching it up a little bit, but with the Jays being in Toronto, you guys. Obviously, not Sheldon. He hasn't actually managed to do it yet, but you've actually managed to go to a game.
Yes, sir.
How was it?
I've been to 3 games on this homestand so far. I went to both 3 games.
And you don't say to Sheldon, man, come along.
He can't even find me, man. I feel bad because I'm never on Blue Jay Center anymore because it's either work or softball or baseball or something, and I try and catch the shows as much as I can, or I'll try and watch when they post it. They're doing great. I mean, everyone there is amazing. I always say that. I love them to death. They're all young.
Cole is pure entertainment when we lose. When we lose, and Cole's on,
that's the problem. When the Jays win, Cole doesn't go on rants, and that's the part that I miss. Now he's starting to pick on Ann, which was my job for the first little while. Now it's his job. So he's doing a pretty good job of it. So I'm not going to say anything more than that. Ann picks on me. So I'll stay quiet.
No, Rob, tell us as an insider from there, obviously, and you are like Blue Jays baseball through and through. Like what's it been like? Because on the TV, it's looked amazing.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first game, which is the Friday, the first game that they came back, and just walking through the ballpark. I don't know why, but for some reason, like I got vibes the last time I was there, the 2019 team. I just thought of all the uncertainty within this team. Everyone wanted, Shapiro and Atkins gone. There was no what's the pitching? How's that going to look like? You have Vladdy Guerrero, this top prospect who has come up and had an underwhelming rookie year, and it's just to go from that to the team's coming back with 4 legitimate starters. They're coming back with Bo and Vladdy graduating to being already big-time all-stars already.
Yeah.
4 all-stars, exactly. So it's just crazy the strides that they made from the last time I was there in that building. And that was the initial reaction I got when I walked in, but not more so just the baseball of it. The fact that you were at a ballpark and with people in the stands is that sort of experience, as obviously, as we all know, wherever we live in the world, has come at a premium these past 16 months, roughly, with all this COVID nonsense going on. So the fact that we were able to go there was outstanding in its own. And not only that, but to see the team go out and play well, sweeping that Royal series and then winning, ultimately going 9-2 in that homestand. It's obvious that the trade deadline has invigorated this team and made them play a lot better. We saw that in 2015, but adding the coming home element has also played a role into it. And I think when you really look at that, it's hard to really envision a much better homestand, possibly done better than come back home with a legitimate playoff contender in front of fans who have been dying to go out to a baseball game in years and then make some splash to the deadline. It's these last 2 weeks have just been like magical as a Blue Jays fan.
Kind of reminds me of the 2015 when the Jays were kind of teetering, and then they made these two huge moves with Price and Tulowitzki, and that just invigorated the entire fan base. And I think the
Barrios, don't forget too. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sheldon.
I was going to say, I think the Barrios trade really pumped a lot of energy into this team because now they got another legit starter, and he is a 1 or 1A type starter. And I think people are kind of getting, like, honestly, I'm getting that 2015 vibe where this team is just going to go on a run, and it's conceivable. They got 55 games left or something like that. They can actually go 40-15 and get close
blow
to
everyone else out the water. Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
we're 10 games over 500 at the moment, right? Is it 10 games?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10. Yeah. 1650.
20 games ago, 20 games ago, we wouldn't have thought that was possible.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say to Sheldon, I rudely interrupted. Unfortunately, my bad there. But after that Tuesday game against Boston, 2 days before the deadline, they were 2 games over 500 with 3 games left against the Red Sox. There could have easily been a scenario where they just go on the landslide and they're a 500 team at the deadline, and at that point, it's like, well, this team's clearly in the premature phase of their contention. It's no reason why we should go all in and try to salvage this season, right? And I don't think, had they done that, I don't think many people would have necessarily gotten too upset about it. I think that they would have been justifiable.
A lot
that they went completely the other way.
A lot of the fans had written the season off, right? At that point.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, I was starting to get there as well. I remember doing the post game after that Monday. They lost to Boston where they blew another lead, which, obviously when I say they blew another lead, it's like, well, which one was that? We don't remember exactly. Mm-hmm. But I was getting to the point where I just said, you know what, as great as this team is, I think this bullpen has just been too big of an Achilles heel for far too long, where this season just doesn't look like it's going to happen. And right after that, 3 days later, they make the Barrios trade and they go back home. Everyone's all happy right now. So the timing has been perfect. Absolutely perfect. So
in regards to being at the stadium, like me and Sheldon, we've talked about this before. Did you get a hot dog?
I did on the Sunday Sunday game.
Was it the
not the opening night?
Was it like a normal hot dog, or was that long hot dog they got?
And did you share it with anyone, or did you eat it all on your own?
You should have eaten it all yourself.
No sharing. No sharing, especially during COVID times. What was that? It's a safety measure, Jay. Come on, buddy.
Okay. So you had the hot dog. The question is did you get a foam finger?
I did not. That one's an old one. That's got the old logo.
That's an old one. It's got the old logo on it too.
Dude, I can tell you now that was probably 2008.
5, 6, 7, 8.
8. It can't be any later than 2008. It was either 2007, 2008.
I started grade school that year.
Crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for making us feel old, buddy.
Went to the game. Took my wife, as she is now. Wasn't my wife at the time. Took her to the game with my cousin and his wife. Me and my cousin stayed. The girls went off shopping. Because that's
hard not to be romantic about baseball, Jay.
That's what they do. Yeah, I tried. She just wasn't having a bar of it, but I tried my best. Okay, so we've been to the game. We've established that the atmosphere is great. We've established that it's obviously a good thing that they're back in Toronto. I wanted to quickly talk about the trade deadline and Barrios and what we gave up. And when I say I want to talk about it quickly, I remember having you guys on. I think it was you two and Cole, and we were talking about prospects, and you all kind of agreed that prospects are just prospects. Do we really care who we gave up to get him?
Yes and no. Yes
Yeah.
and no. I think look, I'll be honest, giving up Austin Martin and Simeon Woods Richardson for Barrios is definitely a price to pay, right? They didn't steal Jose Barrios. They paid a decent price to get him, and a lot of people were hesitant about that. But at the same time, yes, they gave up a lot.
Considering their numbers weren't great this year.
Yeah, but to me, like minor league, I'm looking more at tools as opposed to numbers. You know, like there are a lot of guys who have had poor numbers in the minors, and then once they graduated, they figured it out. It all came towards. And there's also examples on the other side of guys pitching well in the minors and not becoming those guys at the big league. So I'm not too concerned about that. But at the same time, like I was saying, you gave up a lot, but you also got back a lot. You got back one of the best starters in the American League for the last half decade almost. He's been legitimately, like I said, one of the best starters. You look at even the raw metrics, ERA, WHIP, all those numbers. He's at the top of the list since 2017, I believe. So he's really good. You got a guy who's really good, who's going to be here for this playoff run, hopefully a long one, and then next year as well, where the Blue Jays certainly hope that they'll be right back in contention as well. So you needed a frontline starter for next year. You were either going to have to get them right now at the deadline or in the offseason, and they got him right now. So at the same time, I'm not complaining. I think you have to like this deal. The resume speaks for itself. Barrios, his first couple starts, first impression, check. It's been good. I think that the Jays made the right move. I like this trade.
Before I get Sheldon's take, I'll ask you both separately, just yes or no. Rob, would you have made the same deal?
Yes.
Okay. Sheldon, would you have made the same deal?
If I could have taken Martin out and put Groshans in there, and I probably would have, but you're gonna have to pay a premium, so I would say yes.
Okay. I also think that I think that people, the reason why they were so hesitant about it is because they think back to 2015 where they kind of shredded the farm system, and then they had the year and a half of contention, but then that followed 3 pretty miserable years of Blue Jays baseball, for being honest.
But that's not the case.
It's not the case this year. It's not. No, not at all. I was just going to make that point right now. Despite the fact that they gave up Martin and Simeon Woods Richardson, this farm system still remains pretty stacked. Like there's still a lot of guys who you can groom to become players for you in the future, or you can use them as trade assets as well. So the cupboard is far from empty. And not just that, but if you look at that team, the 2015 team, Bautista, Donaldson, and Edwin, all those guys, Tulowitzki, they were all older guys who their contention window was going to be small regardless if we gave up, right?
We do it and we do it now.
Exactly. That was all in. But this team, they're going to have Vladdy for the next 10 years, hopefully. They're going to have Bichette for the next 10 years.
And we still have a whole load of prospects sitting there as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think it's completely different. I don't think it's the same circumstances. You accumulated these prospects for a reason, and that's to some of the guys, Vladdy, Bichette, like I mentioned, hopefully Manoah, who looks like he might be the next guy in terms of the pitching side of things, to perform for you, but also some of the other guys. Trade them for proven players, and that's what they did. It's funny how Jays fans are like, Shapiro and Atkins, they love prospects. They're prospect hoarders. They're not going to give up anyone, and they finally do give up, like trade for someone else.
The one player everybody thought wouldn't be given up was Austin Martin.
Yeah, exactly. It
goes to show we have no idea what them two are thinking at any point.
I think Austin Martin's inclusion was because of Orlovich Martinez's ascendance. He's performed incredibly well in the minors. So I think that's what they were probably looking at. And of course, there were some reports that Austin Martin's defense at short and in center, the metrics were not kind to him. So they probably figured, you know what, let's jump on it while he's still got some
prospect shine on him.
Yeah, and just see what they can get for him. I think in a few years, and obviously with trades, when you trade prospects, there's always something that you got to look at in, later on in like 2 or 3 years time, what these prospects could amount to. I remember when everybody jumped up and down about the Dickey trade because we gave up Syndergaard. But at that time, Syndergaard was not regarded as a frontline starter. They had eyes on him as being a bullpen piece. It was Travis
I
d'Arnaud.
disagree.
I have to.
No. I mean, because he was a
I have to
two-pitch.
put my hand up though when
Put your hand down then.
when they made the Dickey trade. I was going nuts.
I was going nuts because of Travis d'Arnaud. I when I was reading the reports on, Stroman, Sanchez, Daniel Norris, Syndergaard, they kind of looked at Syndergaard as the fourth guy. They had high hopes on Daniel Norris. They had incredible high hopes on Stroman and Sanchez. So, but I was actually saying JP Arencibi is not going to be around for a while. I think he's going to be done. I thought Travis d'Arnaud was going to be the catcher of the future. I was more upset about d'Arnaud being included in the trade than Syndergaard at the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, and you know what? Then look what ends up happening. d'Arnaud took a while to get to where he is now, where he's an offensive catcher and very good. Unfortunately, he's been injured this year, but Syndergaard was the guy who amounted out to being a frontline stud. So, and who knows in 3 years, man? Maybe we've been saying, maybe Martin and Woods Richardson end up being, the next, Verlander and Altuve for all you know, and then we'll all be shaking our heads going, "Why did we do that?" And it's natural. Fans will always do that.
If we win the World Series this year, we won't be shaking our heads.
I think. Well, I mean, and again, that's the same thing.
Buts and maybes, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the same thing when the Jays traded for David Cohn. They way back before Rob was even thought of. And they traded Jeff Kent and Ryan Thompson. And I keep on talking about that trade because people thought that Ryan Thompson would have been the big star, not Jeff Kent. And it ended up being Jeff Kent. And Ryan Thompson had, he was in the majors, but he didn't really have a huge impact. So anything can happen with these prospects. And, we'll see. I mean, only time will tell. And, you can even go back this far. And again, this is before Rob's time, when the Jays made a deal for 3 players from Pittsburgh, Orlando Merced, Carlos Garcia, and I think it was Dan Plesac. And they traded like a whole stack load of prospects or, minor league prospects, and none of them amounted to anything. So it's hit and miss, man. It's one of those things where we got to kind of see where it goes in the future. But I'd be excited if they re-sign Berrios to like a 5-year deal. Yeah, of course.
I think that's got to be on the cards.
I'm taking credit. I'm taking credit for the Dickey trade. I said at the time that I did not like that trade. I thought that you have a pretty decent sample of a knuckleballer being pretty average in his whole career and having that one good year that had prime outlier season written all over it. I didn't like the fact that they traded Syndergaard for it. So I'm going to take my flowers on that. I'm also such a contrarian where, like, the first few starts, Dickey struggled, and it was like, oh, I told you so. And all of a sudden, everyone starts hating on Dickey. They turn on him completely, and now me being the contrarian and be like, hold on, at the same time, he's not that bad. I obviously, like I said at the start, I didn't like the trade, but that doesn't mean he's not, a capable big league starting pitcher, which, like, after like halfway through the first season, everyone was ready to, like, throw him out. And I'm like, okay, well, he's not necessarily that bad. So
but the problem with Dickey, and
he was a knuckleballer in the sky and then Rogers Center.
Yeah, that's it. But not only that, the problem with him was he came over. I wasn't convinced by him in the first place. But not only did we end up with him, we end up with his dodgy catcher in the team every time he plays. So we ended up. So not only did we have a pitcher that couldn't pitch his knuckleball in the dome, we ended up literally batting with 8 players.
Yeah, Josh Louis was the only guy who could catch him, man. I mean, Aaron Sebia wasn't going to catch him. Aaron Sebia was just going to get demolished. Yeah, that was. But you know what? At the end of the day, Dickey with Mark Burley at the top of your rotation. I mean, they're not like what we have now, but they were veteran stalwarts that helped Stroman, Sanchez along a little bit.
Burley was immense.
Yeah, Burley was. I mean, they gave you what you wanted.
2 separate trades, though.
Yeah, 2 separate trades. But they gave the Jays what they needed, was guys who can go 200 innings. That was one thing you didn't have to worry about with those 2. They were going 200 innings, and they were giving you like a 4 ERA. So that was the one consistency you always had, that these guys were going to go and give you innings. That trade with Miami, I didn't like it. I'm the first to say I will jump up and down and say I didn't like it. And the fact was they traded Henderson Alvarez away, who I thought had potential. And I still felt he had potential until he blew his arm out. And I didn't think Jose Reyes' legs would have held up on field turf. And
I wasn't a big fan of his, if I'm honest. Like he's
Jose Reyes.
Yeah.
I can see why they did it.
A big fan. I just wasn't a big fan.
Well, Mets Jose Reyes was a great player. Like I'm not taking anything away, but Blue Jays Jose Reyes, he was a shell of himself. He wasn't.
We've seen a couple of players like that though. Tulo was another one. Tulo came over, and he wasn't. He did good for one season, but he wasn't the player that we were expecting to see.
And a big part of that was injuries too.
Yeah, injuries, and also you got to think that the Coors Field effect, and that's not again.
A lot of money involved with him. A lot of money involved with him, and we ended up writing off.
But Jay, don't forget, like the money was kind of like a sunk cost because they were paying Reyes regardless. So had they not made that trade, you were still paying $20 million for an overpriced shortstop.
No, I know. They're just two. Both players like Reyes, Tulo. Neither of them. I'm quite happy to see Bo at shortstop now. Even with his defensive inabilities at times, I'm quite happy to see him there. Like he's much more a Blue Jays player than either of them two, as far as I'm concerned.
No doubt.
But let's move this forward because we won't make this too long today.
That's what we always say.
No, we won't because I want to try and get it edited up before. Like it's still relatively early. Like I still have daylight. I haven't put the.
So do we. Well, I have clouds. I don't know. Rob, you got clouds outside?
A lot of clouds up here.
Okay.
Let's move forward. Obviously, big series coming up against the Angels. I'm not going to be able to see most of it live because it's going to start at 3:00 in the morning. We've been saying it for probably 10 days to 2 weeks now. It's a must-win series. But I think it is. Like, we can't afford to lose this series. One, because they'll gain ground on us. Which is not a good move. Like they still have the potential to do something, even though I'm still not convinced. They're a two-player team at the moment, if you ask me. But so we have to win this series. But I think also to gain ground because I think that Boston, Yankees, Tampa Bay this week should drop at least 1 or 2 games here or there, right? Which will be really important for us.
Ideally.
So first of all, where do you see the series going? And secondly, like, what's it going to take, like, over the next week or so, like, realistically, with given who we are playing, what do you think? Like, what do you think it needs to be in regards to wins and losses?
I hate this idea that, well, not just idea, but we've gotten to the point of the season where every series is the biggest series of the year. Every game is the biggest game of the year. It's like this game's a must win because let's be honest, you lose a game, that's a missed opportunity, which sucks because that eventually, they're going to lose some games, right? It's baseball season. The Jays are going to lose at least 10 times for the rest of the season, right? So we know it's going to happen, but at the same time, we talked earlier 2015 vibes. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but in 2015, a month or so, a few weeks after the deadline, the Jays went into Anaheim, an Angels team who was still somewhat contending. And look, I'm going to call it Anaheim. I'm not calling it LA. They play in Orange County, California. That's not LA, sorry. But they ended up sweeping that series, and they looked really good. They pretty much knocked the Angels right out of the race in that series. And, like, that was a series where I looked at that team, and I'm like, yeah, this team's going to the playoffs. There's, like, no doubt about it at that point. And then they cruised the rest of the way, obviously. So I'm hoping for some similar vibes like these ones in this series. I'm not saying that they're going to sweep them, but I feel like, the Angels, they're an inferior opponent to the Jays. I would say 2 out of 4 would be a somewhat disappointment. So 3-1 is not going to be easy, but I think it's doable.
I think the next 7 games with the Angels and the Mariners. If the Jays go 5-2, they've pretty much knocked those 2 teams way back a little bit. So
that's fair.
I'm hoping I'm hoping they go 5-2.
Which would make what 3-1? 2-1.
Yeah, I would say 3-1 against Angels, and then
2-1.
2-1 against the Mariners. Because then after that, you got the Nats for 2 games, and then you got Detroit. And like I mentioned earlier, Detroit probably could play the role of, spoiler, or
have we really been lucky with how the games have fallen today, with the fact that it's Matt and Stripling pitching in the 2 7-inning games?
Yeah.
Like, have we like that? Like, it's worked in our favor, bearing in mind we regard them as our 2 pitchers. Bearing in mind, once it gets to like the 6th inning, Stripling and Matt both start to have problems around the 5th, 6th inning. So is it like the perfect scenario for us to go with Matt and Stripling in the 2 shorter games, and then the big guys, guys come in for the next ones?
Sure, absolutely. I think in general, the Blue Jays, these 7-inning games, they favor the Jays because, like, obviously 7-inning games, it's a lot shorter. Their weaknesses don't get exposed as much, which is obviously the bullpen. So limiting the role of the bullpen will help this team's chances to win exponentially. So the fact that you don't have to use them as much, the bullpen being in these 2 games, that's huge, obviously. And like, I mentioned Stripling and Matt's going. Those are 2 guys who usually they're pretty good the first 2 times through the order, and then they kind of melt down that 3rd time through. So being that it's a 7-inning game, you don't have to count on them that 3rd time through to get any outs for you. You can just kind of go right to your big guys. If Stripling gives you 5, then it's Simber Romano, and next game Matz gives you 5, it's Richards and insert guy here, Brad Hand, right? So it's the formula to winning becomes a lot more simpler. Especially with starters,
that's going on the basis that the games are pretty close, right? Like,
that's going on the basis. That's going on the basis that Charlie Montoya knows what he's doing.
Yeah, let's.
I think blows out, like, he's just using bullpen arms like crazy, and
we could look. I'm hoping that now that the guys have been at home, it's been a long homestand, because it has been a long homestand to play as many games as we did. I'm hoping that now that they get away, new city, get away from it, a little bit of less pressure, that they might actually be able to breathe a little bit, because I think the spotlight's been on them, especially with us playing teams like the Red Sox. The Red Sox obviously were leading the division up until just a few games ago. So maybe let's hope that they can go in there a bit more relaxed, and actually the bats can be a bit more free. I'm expecting Vladdy to do something special this week, because he's been very quiet.
Especially, don't forget too, back in LA, where I'm not sure exactly his situation, but obviously being that Vladdy Sr. is going to the Hall of Fame as an Angel, I would imagine he spent quite a bit of time there in Southern California growing up. So that's going to be pretty cool, kind of returning not so much home, I would say, but a place where he may have lived, growing up.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm looking at Game 4, Ohtani versus Berrios.
Wow, yeah, that's must-see TV.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Ohtani versus Vladdy, literally.
And the best part is, I think Cole's he's hosting the stream for that game. So whatever way that's going, that's going to be a show you want to catch.
Yeah, I don't think I want to play that. I don't think I'll play a softball game that day. I think I'm just going to back and watch that game, and then watch Cole go ballistic if the Jays lose.
Let's hope that they don't.
Listen, Cole is must-see television, man. When he goes off, it is just, I sit back and just listen. I don't even say anything.
Okay, so one quick last point before we go. Now that obviously all the fanfare has died off with us coming back to Toronto, trade deadlines passed, we've got the players in that this is it now. This is who we've got to get us through. Are we comfortable with what we have? And I already know Sheldon's already said that he thinks that we can definitely catch the Red Sox. We can possibly catch Tampa. We have enough now to actually go on and go the whole way. I'm still not convinced we're stronger than teams like maybe the Dodgers, maybe Houston.
I don't think anybody's as strong as the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Oh, what about Chicago?
Yeah, even the White Sox to a certain extent. Yeah,
well, the White Sox bullpen is really, really good. If
we play them though. We play them soon, right? So
I'm terrified of that series.
But here I'm not, and I tell you why I'm not. because it will be a good measuring point for where we are against where they are. And if they blow us out the water, at least we know. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to get to the wild card game. We win the game. We're all jumping up and down. We all get really excited. And then we play a playoff series against someone like the White Sox and we get beaten 3-0. Like, because that would just kill me. I'd rather we know where we stand, see how it goes, and take it from there. That's my thinking, because there's nothing worse than getting overhyped. I did it during the Euros. Like, we were so close. And then we get to the final and we got beat by the better team. They were miles ahead of us.
We also got to think that the White Sox are playing in a division where you have the Twins, the Tigers for earlier part of the season, the Royals now. Teams that
Twins.
teams that are easily, getting beaten up. So is their record defining just how good they are, or is the record actually a definition of how poor the division is? The AL Central.
That's what I mean. Let's see how they do against us.
Yeah,
we think we're good. We think we're good, right? They probably think that they're good. Should be an interesting series.
It's going to come down to two things: their young players versus our young players, and their bullpen versus our bullpen. I'm not going to include Tony.
That's what terrifies me.
Yeah, I'm not going to include Tony La Russa versus Charlie Montoyo because both have been at points this season batshit crazy. So it's going to be bullpen versus bullpen and young player versus young player.
Yeah, but I still think that our lineup 1 to 5 is possibly in the best top 3 in the MLB.
And one of them will be one of them will have to be the White Sox, if you think about it. So, you got Abreu, Anderson, Moncada when he's starting to roll. Luis Robert, now that he's back, Eloy Jimenez, Yasmani, Grandel. They've got bats. So
to me, the White Sox are the Blue Jays like a year into the future. It's like what the Blue Jays are going to be a year from now. Once they get a little more seasoned and they get some more help in the pen.
Yeah, no,
that's how I see it.
Just quickly, so answer the question. Do you think that we've got what it takes to go all the way? Yes or no?
To win a World Series?
Yeah. Or are we still short? Are we still short?
I think we're short in the pen. I think we do have a rotation that's capable of competing with anyone in a lineup, especially. I think we're one legitimate left-handed bat and a few legitimate strikeout relievers away from being a World Series team.
Sheldon?
Which is, to me, that's an off-season fix.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I think we need a couple. I think we should. I would like to see a little more balance in the lineup, a little more lefties, or maybe some switch hitters in the lineup. And I think we're
like Valera.
Nah, I mean, I think he's got a little bit of potential, but I wouldn't hang my hat on him. And I think we need a bullpen arm. I think we need someone definitive to come in, like someone like say like a Liam Hendricks. He's coming out, he's closing the door. Something like that, where it's almost like the psychology of the game would be, oh crap, we know if we get to the 9th inning, this is who we're going to face, so we need to get to these guys early. And I think having a Romano coming in the 8th and whoever else coming in the 7th and the 6th, knowing that there is a monster coming out of the 9th, and that could be anybody. I'm just going to throw a name, like say Chapman, even though he's been beaten up a little bit recently. But still, this guy's he's looming in the bullpen. So the psychology of the game kind of gets played into there. So yeah, I think they need a bullpen. I think they need a definitive bullpen arm, like a monster.
Which we had at the beginning of the season with Kirby Yates, right? But unfortunately, that never really worked out. Quickly, I just realised there was something I was meant to ask you guys. So I've seen a lot of stories today in regards to expanding the playoffs to 14 teams or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they said that they're talking about that this season, but that's not for this season, though, is it?
No, for next season.
No, I don't believe so.
And how the hell do you expand it to 14 teams? Like, what's the logic behind it? We've got like a few minutes here, so be quick whoever's answering.
I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
Hey, go ahead. Okay, I was going to say if they're going to expand it, they're going to have to go through geographic realignment. I think that's the best way to do it. And I think it's a lot cleaner too. If you take a look at all the other leagues, they've gone through geographic realignment. It's a lot cleaner. You can get the teams that you want. If you want 7 teams from the West and 7 teams from the East, that's fine. If you want 8 and 8, that's fine. and they got to do something about that universal DH. You're going to have it, or if you're not. I think there's a couple of things that they need to take care of. But would I like to see more teams? Yeah, it definitely makes it more fun.
I think what you could end up seeing is maybe obviously you'd have similar to last year where it's just like the 7 best teams in each league, the American League, National League. I do feel like it's difficult with 7. That's a lot easier with 8 because now it's like 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. When it's uneven amount of teams, it gets a little more complicated. The NFL had an uneven amount of teams, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I think what they just ended up going to was you had the first 2 teams had a bye, and then it was just seeding after that. What I could see happening is the 3 division winners have a bye, and then you have a wild card round of what we saw last year, a best of 3 series, and it would be 3 versus 7, 4 versus 5. Then those 2 teams face off, or then you could reseed them.
Yeah,
It's complicated. I feel like an even amount of teams would work better, like either 6 teams in each league or 8 in each league. But I definitely do feel that playoff expansion is definitely needed in baseball because you look at this whole Jays team. If you think about it right now, unless they make a magical run and the Rays drop off, we're talking about this being, a magical run here, maybe get in the postseason, and our reward is going to be a 1-game do or die, right? So it's kind of disheartening, the fact when you put it that way. So I think that absolutely having more teams make the playoffs, that generates more fan interest, that generates more money for the league. I think it works out well for everyone.
I think it generates more money for the small market teams that, say like Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh gets their selves straightened out, and that could help them as well. So yeah, I think I totally agree. I think an expansion is needed, but they got to really talk about that, the DH, there's a couple things they need to kind of add into it.
Also, it'll make teams more willing to spend in free agency, right?
Yeah.
Because there's more teams available in each league. There's going to be less sellers, right? Because there's more chance to make the playoffs. So you can't be counting on the whole season. We'll be like, okay, let's wait until the deadline. We can get someone up. They'll make teams act quick and make more offers in free agency.
I guess we're about to find out soon, and I guess they'll make some kind of announcement at some point. But it's definitely interesting to see where that goes.
If they make an announcement, it's going to be before the free agency season. They should make it.
Right. Okay. Guys, we're going to run out of time, so we're going to cut it there. I'd like to thank you both, Rob and Sheldon. Guys, as always, make sure you go and check them out over on Blue Jay Center. Sheldon will be in the chat, like listening to everyone else talking, because he's just not available at the moment. Rob will be on. Rob's on tonight at like silly o'clock in the morning UK time. If anyone is interested, hopefully we'll get another one in. Like scheduling is just crazy at the moment, so hopefully we can try and get one in. Maybe at the weekend, if everyone's around and available, especially with it.
Absolutely.
The games are so late now. And don't forget to make sure you head over to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever else you consume your podcast. And we will see you again soon for another edition of Jay's Talk with Jay. Boom.